Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is now episode 4 of the Precursor rebuild. It is also the final episode that will focus on the tender. This is basically me just doing all the finishing touches and putting this all into one piece so it can be loaded up onto a shelf, out of the way, covered up and left until required. Started off today really by putting the tank in, which I tested at the end of the last episode to make sure there was no leaks in it. So tank's dropped in, then there's a thick patch of rubber that sits on top of the tank to stop this top plate from bending in, because I will at a later date be making a seat for the top of this, but it's not something I'm covering in this video. All I'm doing is I'm fully assembling it so it can be put out of the way. So yeah, putting all the screws in the tank top here. This has already been test fitted. I've had to put all new hardware in here because, as I said in a previous video, there's no screws came with this, so it's a case of digging through and finding the right size screw and sticking it all in. Yeah, it's really looking nice. It comes together nice and easily. Then it's on to putting on the footsteps. Now, I painted the footsteps in a previous episode. These are a casting. They're really robust. They're nice. 2 screws in the front, and that's all it takes. And yeah, it really adding the final details to these things really does help you progress. It's a dopamine response caused by achievement, and I love that bit. So getting things bolted on, finishing touches really do make it go a little bit further. Now it's on to putting on the brake hand wheel. This is something I've knocked up. John brought in a hand wheel from home. I made a handle for it, and the boss that goes behind it. It actuates a clevis which pushes against the brake rod, which moves the rest of the rigging. Now the owner had started to build a lever operated brake, but it was on a ratchet, and with the solid bar construction of all the rigging, it would not have worked efficiently. So I've made this hand wheel, and I think it really does look good. It closely mimics exactly what London North Western used to do on their tenders, where it was actually a hand wheel that was set slightly to the right of this picture and ran a long rod down through the tender to the back of the brake rigging. So I think we've gone best of both worlds here, and the screw type is much better than the lever type. As I say, a tooth ratchet, if it's not a very fine ratchet, it won't apply the braking force. You'll be between teeth most of the time, and it would have been very, very difficult to set up. Whereas this hand wheel, it's self-adjusting, so it does the treat and it looks perfect. From sorting out the handbrake, I'm on to putting in the water valves. Now, I've soldered in the stem, which comes up through the valve and comes through the footplate. Downside to this is it's a little bit awkward putting the lid on here, because I've got to screw the hand wheel onto the top of the shaft and try and turn everything. Yeah, I've not made it easy on myself here. Hindsight, I would have made it a little bit easier, but got a bit of a time crunch on this one, so I'm trying to expedite it as fast as possible, and this does the job. Potentially I might even revisit it and put a flat across the bottom of the valve, so you can put a screwdriver under it and turn the valve, which will in turn wind the shaft through the handle. These handles I made off camera. They mimic the originals, because I only had one original, so it's easier for me to make 2 brand new ones than it is to try and copy what was there. So, and also they've got longer bosses on the back, so they're actually more efficient. So the hand wheel gets threaded on, lots of turn and fro in here, holding the valve with pliers and turning the handle. As I say, very tricky operation, but I managed to get it done. Again, hindsight, I could have done it a different way, but this is the way I've done it. And then once that's wound on, I can screw this tank top down. Again, all new hardware going in here, so just putting the screws in, winding them down, and then there's a couple of cover plates that go behind it which just clip into place. And there's the cover that goes behind it, and just a little bit of a dust with my sleeve. And then it's on to attaching the underside of the valves. So there's a cap that goes over the valve, and it's a little bit awkward here because of the brake gear being in the way. Again, a lot of engines are awkward, and this one is no different. I'm trying to figure out new ways of trying to recommission old things without taken too much away from the original engineering of it. It needs to look as it did. So that's that. On to foot pegs. Now this is going to be a ride on tender. So while I was making the brake rigging, I actually made the hangers really sturdy and quite long, and there's also an 8mm threaded hole in that brake hanger. This is for the foot pegs. Now I've taken some 15mm bar, I've drilled and tapped. I'm just going to wind a thread in, I've glued it in, I'm just going to chop it off and then just grind it flush on the belt grinder so it's going to engage easily, and then it just screws into the top of the brake rigging. Nice and tidy foot peg really. Then I take it off again and I use heat shrink to cover this. So I was going to paint them, but then I thought, well, I'm feeling a bit lazy today, so I'm going to use a bit of heat shrink. I've seen this done before. It also adds a rubber coating to the surface of the foot peg, which will make it slip proof, hopefully. And yeah, it's a good quick way of blacking it out and also making it grippy. And yeah, it just so happened that Pete was working behind me here on the electric, and he had a load of this heat shrink, so I've nabbled a couple of bits so I can wind it onto my foot pegs, and they look an absolute treat. So that is a wrap on the tender. Well, not literally a wrap on the tender. The paint job here is absolutely beautiful. As you can see from the standard of the reflection in the paint, it really looks good. And the handbrake looks good, the water valves look good, everything looks good. The only thing I've really got left to do on the tender is 1, make a seat, and 2, go around and touch up all the screw heads. But I will do that at the end of the project once the engine is ready to go and everything's tested and it works properly. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.